All right, hey folks, what's up? How's it going? So, just give me a few seconds to set it up. It was very noisy around the region where I sit, so I had to kind of move to this quieter place, and we would be jumping onto our topic ASAP. So, don't worry about that, everything is all set. I'm just gonna go ahead and open up the presentation, make this full screen as we do every day. And I just want to test if the audio is working perfectly fine. So cool. The audio is working perfectly fine. If you are already on the live stream, just let me know. I appreciate it. Let me go ahead and share this in my group as well, real quick. Give me 1 second. Shit, I always forget to do this with my page. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, cool. Okay, cool. I've shared it in my group. Hey, so I see that a few people have already joined in. If you have joined in, just drop a hi in the comment section and like this video as well so that I can figure out that somebody's watching and we can kind of get started. Also, let me know if you have seen the previous 4 episodes and if they brought you any value. And you know, if you have any questions in any of those topics as well, I would be happy to take them on in this episode or in the coming couple of episodes that are remaining on this topic. So, as you know, that trying to get, we are actually trying to get 1 second. So five, yes. So we are actually trying to talk about in the series. We are trying to talk about how do we get reviews from various methods. So in the first episode, we spoke about early reviewer program and how do we use that to get the first 5 reviews of our listing. Then we talked about how do we use the product request for review button on the order details page. Then we looked at email sequences. Then yesterday we looked at product inserts, and today we are looking at how do we use influencers and get a few reviews from the influencers uh, we work with as well. So I'm really I really hope that this is bringing you a lot of value and at least like helping you to think in this direction, maybe explore these options if you haven't explored them yourself. So that is the idea with this. And if you are watching this right now, drop the comments. The live chat is also available. I will be receiving the questions and we will be taking all of those questions in the live stream itself if you drop any of those questions. Anyways, so let's get in the topic so that the people who are watching it as a recorded live stream later on don't really waste a lot of time. Okay, cool. So the number one question that you must answer for yourself first is who is an influencer. So a lot of people who are just like starting out in this universe, sometimes they don't know who is an influencer and who is not an influencer. So basically, an influencer's definition would be an influencer is somebody who has uh, a very specific kind of audience for a very specific niche. Okay, so that is an influencer. You could become an influencer if you desire. So like for example, let's say you are very much into biohacking, you're very much into health optimization, you're very much into you know improving your health and improving your mental health and well-being on day-to-day basis. And if you start talking about that, maybe on Instagram, maybe on YouTube, maybe through your blog, wherever it is. Okay, influencers are not just on Instagram. Okay, that is something that you must kind of you know take heed of. People usually think that whenever we say influencers, we have to look at Instagram. So that is not true. It really like influencers are there all over the different social media platforms. Somebody could be an influencer on TikTok, but they may not even have any sort of audience, or they may not even have their account on Instagram. So that is definitely possible. So just to reiterate, who is an influencer? An influencer is somebody who has a very specific kind of audience who are interested in a very specific topic. Okay, and we call them an influencer because they can influence that audience, and they can kind of uh, they are basically the leader, or the uh, source of an expert advice for the audience who are following that person. So that is why we call them an influencer, because they can influence that audience. Okay, so this is like the bare minimum definition. Now, how do you find these influencers? So that is a very good question. If that came to your mind, how do we find influencers? So this really depends on the platform. It depends on the category. It depends on your niche. So, for example, let's say you are somebody who's trying to sell a product which is about beauty or grooming section, or maybe home and kitchen section. Then what you need to do is you need to do your audience research very well. You need to understand who is your audience, what are their pain points, what are they talking about, what kind of language do they use. When I say audience, it means your customers, your future or your prospect customers. You need to understand who are they, what do they like, what do they do, and what kind of language do they use, what kind of words do they use, what do they browse on the internet. You need to be able to figure these things out first. Okay, once you have the answers for all of these things, then it will be super easy for you to basically go ahead and reverse research these things as a customer, as your own customer. And then you would land onto you know places on the internet, whether it is on Instagram, whether it's on a YouTube video, whether it's on a blog. You would land on places wherein uh, you'll find communities of these people. Okay, and when you do that, and when you get there, that basically is your influencer. Now it depends on on the size of that influencer. Let's say that influencer or that website or that company or that YouTube channel that you have landed upon is too huge for you to kind of work with them. In that scenario, you'll have to just find another influencer, unless you are also a huge brand yourself. Because initially, if you are just starting out with a fresh product, big brands or big influencers might not be interested in working with you, uh, because they also kind of have a responsibility of sharing the correct information with their audience, giving them the right advice, bringing them the right products. So you have to find influencers who are, you know, uh, probably just at an intermediate stage, or who has started out recently and they have built a good strong following, and they are looking for opportunities to work with brands and businesses to kind of help them grow, and also bring something to their audience. So keep that in mind. That kind of covers the fact that how do you find them. On Instagram, let me just talk about Instagram very specifically for a few minutes. On Instagram, if you need to find influencers, what you need to do is you can just think about keywords your customers might be using, and then use those keywords as hashtags in the search option on Instagram. That would lead you to certain profiles, certain posts, which would basically lead you to influencers. Okay, similarly, you can use those keywords on YouTube as well to kind of look for other brand other brand product reviews, and just look for channels who are talking about products similar to your product, or maybe uh, products similar to your category or niche. Okay, so that is how you can go ahead and find influencers. Now, how do you approach them? Well, you will always have some kind of option to email them. If you are reaching out on Instagram, most often these influencers are expecting DMs, which is direct messages on Instagram. If they are a bit too occupied, they usually drop their email addresses in their bio. So you can go ahead and find that email address on their bio. Then let's talk about YouTube. If you are talking about YouTube, usually in the about section of every channel, every YouTuber or every creator has their email address. So that's how you can go ahead and discover their email addresses, or you can always look for their Instagram handles or Twitter handles and reach out to them there directly, because they are usually very active on these platforms. So that is how you discover and reach out to them. But how do you approach them? So when you are trying to approach an influencer, don't just, you know just pounce on them and tell them that, hey, we've got this product, and we would like you to kind of pick this up and talk about this to your customers. Okay, don't just have that kind of communication right off the bat with the very first message that you send. When you send them the very first message, talk about yourself, talk about your brand, talk about what are you bringing to the universe, and how does it, you know relate to them, and why are you reaching out to that particular person, and how can they add value to your brand. Okay, just kind of give them all of these questions and answers, so that they have a very clear idea about you, your brand, your product, and they also have a very clear understanding about how can you bring value. Like, how can the influencer bring value to this brand, and how can the brand bring value to this to the influencer's audience. So you need to answer all these questions in the first communication uh, with them. And then uh, once that is through, once they are interested in you, only and only then you should look for look out towards working with them. Okay, so again, guys, drop a thumbs up on this video if you're watching this. I would really appreciate it. This is the fifth video in the series. So as you can see that I'm coming up online regularly, and it really takes some amount of time, energy, effort, motivation. So I would really appreciate if you can just hit that thumbs up button and let me know that you are watching, so that I'll be even more motivated to create these videos for you on a day-to-day basis, because this is basically just me doing what I'm doing, and I'm just coming online as well to talk about these things with you. Okay, so let me see if there are any comments. At the moment, there are none. That's okay. If you are watching this at a later time, if this is recorded, just drop your questions in the comment section below. And before you leave, subscribe to the channel, turn on that notification bell, so that you are notified when I come online next time, so that we can kind of, have a two-way communication and connect with each other at a deeper level. All right, moving on. So, what platform should you pick on? I think we touched upon this a little bit already. If you are, looking for influencers for your brand, it just depends on where your audience is. Okay, don't just always pick Instagram just because everybody else is picking Instagram. Maybe your product requires a bit more in-depth insights. Maybe YouTube is a better option because your product requires the customer to get an in-depth insight about your product, and that can only happen with a long and lengthy video on YouTube. Maybe your product cannot be advertised on YouTube. In that scenario, you might want to look for blogs where you can just do it via text. So anything could work. You have to think about your product. You have to think about where your audience is. You have to think about what kind of understanding does your audience need to get your product. Let's say if you're just selling another kind of kitchen knife, so people really don't need to get much educated about kitchen knives, so that can be done through Instagram. But let's say you are selling a very complicated electronic product. At that moment of time, people might need to get in-depth ideas about the technical specifications and how does it feel when somebody actually uses it, which can be only conveyed through a YouTube video. So it depends on what product it is and where your audience is. Now, coming to the last point of this slide, which is the deal options. And then after this, we will get into the facts and the things that we should not be doing when you work with influencers. So it'll be another 5 minutes in this video. So stick around till the end. Hit that like button. I'm sorry I keep repeating this, but I really need those likes so that I can understand that you're watching this, even if it's at a later time, and that motivates me to come back every day and bring you some value and help you kind of get your thinking going. So, deal options. So there are multiple ways you can work with an influencer. Number one, it could be as simple as a sponsored post. Okay, when I say sponsored post, that basically means that you just go ahead and find out an influencer, talk to them, have this discussion, and you just tell them that, hey, and you just basically request their price for posting. Uh, on their feed or on their story or on their channel, wherever it is. And then they will give you a price for that. And once you pay them, they would basically go ahead and do some research or maybe request some assets from you and can then get the job done. And the sponsored posts are usually removed at a later time, unless it's like on YouTube or maybe on a blog. Then it'll probably just stay there, or you can request the influencer to just keep it there and not remove it ever. So that is sponsored post for you. I never try to do a sponsored post. I always try to do the second option, which is a product exchange deal. So I usually work, like, I've only worked with medium to intermediate influencers who have, followers less than or equal to 10,000 to 20,000 at max, because these influencers are usually willing to work with you with a simple product exchange deal, where you basically go ahead and send them a free product. They would be happy to review it for you, and sometimes if you can convince them, they would also share the the some pictures, some video assets with you after their job is done. So that is the best way. Now, because we are talking about getting reviews from them, what you can do is, if you are just trying to, get one influencer deal or one influencer campaign done for your brand every month, what you can do is you can also request the influencer to go ahead and purchase your product officially at a full price on Amazon. Refund them at a later point in time. Okay, don't do that immediately, and never do it with the same email address. Like, let's say you have a PayPal account, don't do it with the same don't have that PayPal account with the same email address as on Amazon. There's no hard evidence to why, but I would just not have that. Okay. And so once they go ahead and purchase your product through Amazon officially, they can also drop you a verified review at a later time, along with pictures, because they might end up, even taking pictures for you to post on their social profiles or maybe on YouTube. So always try to get one review per month through an influencer as well, because that not only gives you an advantage on to work with the influencer and get some traffic and attention to your brand, but they also end up giving you a review. And that is why this is a part of this slide, as this series as well. And that is what I do whenever I work with an influencer through Instagram or through YouTube. I always request them to also drop me a review, because I make them purchase my product through Amazon itself, and that is my criteria to work with them. So those were the different options, or those were the different topics that we had to cover today. We covered today who is an influencer, how do we find them, how do we approach them, what platforms should you pick, what kind of deal options do you have. Of course, there are even more deal options, but I just wanted to touch upon sponsored posts and product exchanges, because these are the best and the most common ones. And then now, let's just spend a few minutes in talking about what should you not be doing. So don't try to go ahead and look for the biggest influencer just because they have a huge audience base. Okay, sometimes uh, two things can happen here. Number one, usually a very big influencer might not be interested in working with you, because they just have better responsibility towards their audience. But if they are just doing that for money, then it might not also work out for you, because you may not be ready with a good insight towards your audience itself. You may not be ready with a good insight about their audience, and you may not understand, and you may not be able to take the leverage of their audience base. So uh, plus, obviously, they would be more expensive, because they might not be ready to work with your product exchange deal, as they have a huge audience. So that'll be a very wild bet, in my opinion. If you have Initially, you should always work with smaller influencers, maybe less than 20K at max. Do that for the first 10 to 12 influencers. Then you get an understanding and idea about what kind of influencers are working for you, for your product, for your brand, and what kind of influencers are not able to convert their audience. And once you have that understanding, then you should take bigger bets, such as going ahead and chasing or working with the bigger accounts. Second, don't believe in the vanity metrics. That basically means that a lot of because this influencer game has also become like a huge passive income business for a lot of people. People are trying to kind of become influencers in a particular niche. Sometimes some influencers only have a lot of followers because they have purchased those followers, and they really don't have an engaging audience, because don't really share any true value. They just probably curate value all over the internet, and they just kind of reshare it in their feed, and that kind of helps them build their audience along with purchasing audience. So you want to be staying away from that. You have to kind of closely observe influencer account as well. There are tools like there used to be a tool called igaudit.io, which kind of gave you some metrics around what kind of engagement ratio do they have. So if any account has more than 1.5 to 2% engagement ratio, then that is not a bad number, to be very honest. But most accounts don't have that. Okay, and if you just kind of go ahead and believe their follower count, then that can kind of get you in trouble and become like a bad investment for you. So don't do that. Do some testing. Also, when you want to finalize an influencer, spend 5 to 6 days in understanding how are they interacting. Okay, look at their 6 posts and look at their previous week's posts and see what kind of engagement are they having. Are they having real people commenting or liking the post, or are they just having bots doing that? So you have to do that, and that requires some manual efforts. That requires some eyeballing. So you have to be patient with this as well. Just like everything else about private label, you have to be patient with working with influencers as well. You cannot just like finalize a deal with the influencer right away today and work with them. And the number third point is don't be shy. Don't be shy in the sense, when I work with my influencers, before I finalize them, I always request them to share their audience insights or some kind of data which they have from their backend. Like there is data in the YouTube backend, there is data for every blog as well through Google Analytics, there is data in the Instagram backend as well. So they can basically tell me what kind of men to women ratio do they have, then which countries are they getting the most audience from, how is their engagement in the last 7 days on the platform. All of these questions I always look for these data, and true influencers do not have a problem in sharing these things, because you know it, as much as it needs to work for you, it also needs to work for them. So for example, let's say you discover an influencer who is uh, not even in the United States, but you are selling in the United States, so there won't be any point in working with that influencer, and that influencer also won't be able to bring any value to their audience, because you may not be able to deliver the products to their audience because they're not in the US. So it works both ways. So don't be shy, always go ahead and ask for data. Okay, and don't overdo it. What I do with my influencer marketing plan is that I go ahead and probably do it once or twice a month at max, but I ensure that I do it throughout the year. Okay, so there is some consistency, and the biggest advantage that I've had with yo Piyush, what's up? How's it going? So, and the biggest advantage that I've had with influencer marketing is that I have successfully managed to raise awareness about my brand. And slowly what I observed in the entire, like in a matter of 6 to 7 months with my first brand was, people started to search for my brand directly on Amazon. My competitors started to discover my brand name, and they started to bid on my brand name, and that kind of consolidated the fact that, hey, this is working. People are looking for my brand. And that is only happening because that was only happening because over the entirety of 2018, every month I was, and 2019 in the first quarter, every month I was having one influencer or two influencer deals, which kind of brought some awareness in the region where I sold my product. Okay, so those were the takeaways from today, guys. That was the episode for today, about influencer, getting reviews from influencers for your Amazon FBA private label products. And I will see you in the next one. In the next topic, we are going to be looking at how do you get reviews from interest groups and previous customers. So until next time, this is Rich signing off once again from Republic of Sellers. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I will see you in the next one.